Good afternoon, everyone. It's the Two Davies coming to you today, minus a Davy, on the 29th of the 5th, 2025. Now, at this point, I'd say to David, say hello to people who are in, and I'll go and get Facebook on board. But I'll have to do both. So we'll say hello to who's in a minute, once we'll get Facebook on board. And that's a notification telling me that Facebook's just went live. Okay, that's Facebook on board. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Reagan Wheat, Ice Ninja, Alex, Margaret, Lorna, June, Gingers, Jim. Got a phone call from the other Davy about 12 o'clock today to tell me that he has got a problem with his eyes. He has poked himself in one eye and it is closed over and he's in an awful lot of pain. But hopefully he'll be fully recovered and back with us again on Monday. He's waiting on somebody coming out to have a look at his eye. So I didn't want to leave you without a programme. So today my co-host will be the table cat for as long as he decides to lie there and look pretty. Now we've all got on with talking about the other subjects that have been prevalent in the news here in Scotland and wider afield over the last couple of days and today. And we'll try and drag it out for as long as I can. Okay. So you have the pleasure of just me. So first up today, we'll have a wee reflection on First Minister's questions. So what happened in First Minister's questions today? Well, Russell Finlay, leader of the official opposition, had a go at the Committee for Climate Change on the recommendations and the roadmap that they've put forward to reach net zero by 2045. Mr Finlay claims the measures in the roadmap would cripple the economy and cost the Scottish taxpayers a fortune to initiate to implement all the stages we would need to go through to get to net zero by 2045. Now, this has to do with the latest recommendations for the Climate Change Committee saying that we need to get to 57% less emissions than what there was in 1990 in the next 5 years, and to 67% less emissions for what there was in 1990 by 2030. Now, Mr Finlay says it would be no cost effective, and he also says that it would cripple the economy. The First Minister tells him, we'll have a look at the proposals, but we need to do something. That his government needs to do something. After all, climate emergency, climate crisis, climate change, call it what you want, it is the leading issue on the planet today, or it bloody well should be. It's not, but it bloody well should be. We're talking about everybody's future. I mean, they think down that road, they know that migration is a problem. They haven't got a Scooby what it's going to be like when whole continents are on the move because of climate change. And John, the truck driving legend's back in again this afternoon. Here's some more for the food bank, still windy, dreek and drab, like a yoon spouting about the UK. And if you want to know what the weather's like in your area, look out your own windy. Eyes on the prize. John, you're some man. You're some man. Right, so they say the First Minister's absolutely correct. We do have to take these steps. It might be expensive to the public purse. It might cost taxpayers in the long run, but it must be done. The alternative just isn't worth thinking about. Just isn't. Now, of course, second up to question the First Minister's questions, was Anas the liar, poverty pie Sarwar, and he was on familiar ground. He was chasing ambulances as usual, and he was on about waiting lists. As we know, waiting lists are coming down, but Mr. Sarwar says there's 13,000 people out there who will be on a waiting list for 2 years for certain procedures. They probably will be, but they'll be really minor procedures. That's for sure. And I mean really minor procedures. But the waiting lists are coming down. But after 2 years of elective services and selective services being closed, like dental and various other NHS services, GP service, surgeries, all that sort of thing, there is a big 2 year backlog. And people who had minor injury, minor ailments, and couldn't get seen during the pandemic, these minor ailments will now be major ailments. Some of them, all adding pressure. We knew about this during the pandemic. It was discussed extensively in the very first year of the pandemic, the sort of damage that this pandemic was going to impose on public health. We knew this was going to happen. This hasn't just happened in Scotland, Wales, England, Northern Ireland. It's happened to health services worldwide. And it's very difficult for the health services to get back on track. There are only so many health service professionals. And there's only so many hours in a day. So Anas is still chasing fucking ambulances. None of us are surprised. None of us. But Anas is part of the problem. Because apparently Anas is a dentist. Now, if he was working in dental and seated in the Parliament, maybe the dental waiting list would come down. Saying that, would you want that bugger in your gum? Yeah. Okay. Anyway, third up to get a wee pop, the First Minister was, of course, Patrick Harvey of the Greens. And Patrick had a go at the First Minister over the approval of the Flamingo Land Park at Lomond Shores. Now, John tells him, look, they took it to appeal, and that the reporter looked at the appeal, laid down 49 building restrictions, and told him to go away and come back with a plan which met those 49 strict restrictions, and he might approve it. So final approval isn't actually there yet, folks. When this went to appeal, the reporter put in place 49 specifications on the building of this resort that have to be met before final planning can be approved. Will it be approved? Well, it's been provisionally approved. If they can draw up designs and plans that meet these 49 strict planning restrictions, then it will go ahead. But as I say, final approval will be on the resort managers and planners being able to meet the restrictions that the reporter on the appeal put in place. So it's no funny shit. And of course, wee Dougie Ross had to make himself known, because wee Dougie Ross likes to stay in the limelight. So he gets himself kicked out of the chamber for consistently heckling the First Minister during the First Minister's questions, and for calling into question the presiding officer's neutrality in the chamber. Now, apparently, wee Douglas Ross is going to write to the Management Committee of the Parliament to complain about his treatment. I don't see that flying. I don't see that flying at all. But hey, oh, wee Dougie Ross just likes to keep himself in the public eye, so he gets himself kicked out of the chamber. Right, next up in the madness that is the week that we've just had here in Scotland. It's no hour yet, we've still got more to go. As of course, the bust up, the fight, the battle, depending on what newspaper you're reading, that's going on in the Hamilton, Larkhall and Stonehaven by-election race. And talking of race, that's what the fighting's all about. Alright. Farage of the Bretons, these fucking Bretons again, is questioning if Scots-born Sarwar is British enough. Of course, Mr. Sarwar, a Scotsman of Asian origin, calls Leatherface Froggy out as a racist, as did the First Minister John Swinney. And today, galloping up late, because he had to be late to this one, is Sir Kid Starver. Now, why is Sir Kid Starver putting the seat above the parapet now? I have got no idea. He's got a brass neck to call Farage a racist after his Island of Strangers speech last week. So Starmer today calls out Farage on his dirty tactics, because he didn't say racism, in the Hamilton, Larkhall and Stonehouse a constituency by-election today. But Farage just laughed at him and said to him, "Hello, stranger." Why is he saying hello, stranger? To Starmer? Well, let's face it, Farage is a stranger to bloody Parliament. And of course, there was always Starmer's wonderful speech. Yeah. Rivers of blood, Island of strangers. Oh, fascism's wonderful. And it has arrived. It's got its boots on. You don't need to take my word for it. You can go and ask the journalists and protesters that are lying in the clink. They'll tell you fascism's arrived. Yeah, just go and tell the 5 minorities that are being targeted at the moment. They'll tell you fascism's arrived. But hell. So, the Hamilton, Larkhall and Stonehouse by-election is next week. I think it's next Thursday. And that could get interesting. You know, will the vote be split 3 wide by the Unionist Party like the SNP come steaming through the middle? Will the SNP shed some voters to reform? Will the SNP shed some voters to the invisible Davy Russell? Well, there's a few secret Tories in the SNP, but I doubt it. The most likely outcome is the SNP will hold the seat. But we won't know until the day. One of the things that's going to be very important on the day is turnout. So if you're in Hamilton, Larkhall or Stonehouse, get out and vote. And try and vote fucking sensibly. Okay. So it's a cracker Starmer calling out fucking Farage. No one never mentioned the race word there. How could Starmer mention race? I'm sure David will be fine. Say he poked himself in the eye. I just say to him, you daft old git. As I do these days. You know. Right, one of the other things that's been pretty big in the public discourse this week, if you're in Ayrshire especially, will be the stalling of the talks between CMAL in Peel ports so that the Scottish Government can buy Ardrossan Harbour. Now, what's it all about? Well, the Scottish Government, Scottish ministers, and Calmac have pledged the future of they've pledged the Arran route to Ardrossan because it's the quickest route. Now, the Scottish Government want to buy Peel Port. Initially, the plan was for the local council, the Scottish Government, and Peel Ports to renovate the port. That collapsed because they were all arguing about how much each one of them had to put in the pot. Next up, the Scottish Government thought, right, we'll buy Peel Port and we'll do the renovation ourselves. But this time the renovation skyrocketed to 80 million. God knows what it'll be at now. But it would appear that Peel Ports are playing hardball. Now, what is the answer to this? Well, actually, the answer is actually in the ferry route itself. That gives the Scottish Government an inroad to get Peel Port to move. Because the Ardrossan Arran service is also a lifeline service, which means compulsory purchase of that port should be possible. So Scottish Government, stop pissing about. Take it to the court. Make your case based on the fact that that's a lifeline service, and then just buy the bloody thing for Peel Port. Simple as that. This nonsense has to stop. Like saying you're asking me the other day whether he's hurt himself. So he'll be back with us on Monday, hopefully. Right, so this Ardrossan Harbour carry on has been on for a long time, and the Save Ardrossan Harbour campaign are starting to get really frustrated by us, and so they should be, and so should the people of Arran, because they're having to get an extra hour or so added onto the route because it's leaving for Troon, because Ardrossan Harbour can't fit the new boats. But it's time for the Scottish Government to stop messing about in this one. Take Peel to court based on the fact that they're obstructing lifeline services here in Scotland, especially as Calmac has now been redesignated as a public service as opposed to a commercial service. Just got on with it. Compulsory purchase order by the port. That's just the way it has to go if Peel Ports don't want to play nice. So it's time to stop messing about and get that job done. Right. Other thing that's been speculated about this week in Scotland is one that most people won't have heard about. So I'll enlighten you. It's got today whether Scotland will have a third national park or not. Now, in 2022, under the Green SNP coalition, the Green Party proposed a third national park. It was approved. An area to be designated was found, which covers Dumfries, Galloway and a wee bit of South Ayrshire. And the proposal was put out to consultation. Now, the results of that consultation are back. There have been voices for a national park in Dumfries and Galloway and a wee bit of Ayrshire, and there have been voices against. So, after the wider consultation, which said there should be a third national park, they've undertaken a fourth consultation, specifically the people who live in that area, because of the opposition for a national park in that area. Now, the people who don't want the national park, they say it will shove up prices and that the infrastructure in the area could not cope with national park status because of the amount of people that would flood in to use the national park. Those who are in favour of the national park say the area needs it for economic reasons because there will be an economic boost in the event that the national park is created. Now, Nature Scotland, who carried out both consultations, have submitted the outcome of the latest consultation with the local people to the Scottish Government, and the Rural Affairs Secretary, and I think it's Jenny Mara, will be letting us know either tomorrow or later today, tomorrow or Monday, whether that national park will go ahead. Looking at the cost of creation and things like that, creating the national park body for the Galloway National Park, putting the Quango in place to run it, paying their wages, all the expense that goes with it. I've got a funny feeling this one's going to fall flat on its face here, folks. I really do have a funny feeling that this one's going to fall flat on its face. So don't be surprised if it is announced that there won't be a third national park. If there is, good. Protecting areas the size of our national parks, like the Cairngorm, the Trossachs, and hopefully this one, is really good for the health of our country. And it protects the ecosystems within each of these areas, which is also very important. So, see, I've got a funny feeling this one's going to fall flat in its face, folks. But when you get an area of national park status, it brings an awful lot of people to that area. It's good for the economy of that area. On the other side of that, of course, is the people who are campaigning against it also have fair points. Properties within national park boundaries tend to skyrocket. And of course, there'll be an increase in volume of traffic right across the national park area. So they do have good points, those who are against it. Those who are for it also have good points. Is it going to happen? We'll find out in the next couple of days. But I've got a funny feeling that this one's going to fall flat on its arse, folks. I really do. Right, moving on to the last one we're going to cover in Scotland. Another talking point. And this is a current affairs programme, so we won't talk about hard politics here, we're talking about talking points. Another talking point in Scotland this week has got healthcare professionals spooked. Now, what's this about? It's about vaccination uptake. Specifically, mumps, measles and rubella vaccination uptake. Now, what's got the medics spooked? Well, 2 years ago, for the whole year, there was only one lab-proven case of measles in Scotland. Last year, there was 24 lab-proven cases of measles in Scotland right across the year. So far in the first 5 months of this year, there have been 28 lab-proven cases of measles in Scotland. Now, what's got the medics spooked is that some of the poorer areas of Scotland, especially a while back, when we had all a scare story about the mumps, measles and rubella vaccination, a lot of kids in deprived areas did not get vaccinated. That means if we get a measles breakout in one of these areas with low vaccine uptakes, then we could have a fucking disaster in our hands. Measles is a very, very dangerous illness. And if you do survive, which most people do, there are long-term side effects and health effects of having got that virus. So, this is really, an appeal to people out there who didn't get their kids vaccinated to go and get them now that they're in their teens vaccinated. Because it can be really serious if a teenager gets it. And also an appeal for those whose children are coming of age to get the vaccine. We must not have some of these diseases that were wiped out make a return. Can you allow these things to get back into the population? So we might say to ourselves, 28 cases might not sound a lot. But if we look at the progression from 2 years ago with one case, last year 28 cases, 24 cases across the year, this year 28 just in the first 5 months, then, best to knock it in the head before it becomes a pattern. To say, especially the amount of teenagers running about and young adults running about who didn't get vaccinated. Do you work in Cheltenham? You're obviously not speaking to me. I'm in Salisbury, North Lanarkshire. So, folks, grandparents, speak to your children and make sure your little darlings have had their little darlings vaccinated. And if you're in the audience and you're a parent and you didn't get the kids vaccinated because of the nonsense about the MMR vaccine going back 10, 15 years, then look into getting your teenagers and your young adults vaccinated today. Don't know what the possibility of that is, but that's what's coming out of the NHS this week. That, and of course, in Anna Sarwar talking about long waiting lists. Long waiting lists we knew which were coming. Okay, let's move on a wee bit wider afield. And this one will affect our demographic more than most. And that is Rachel Reeves outlines her plans to create a 25 billion fund from private pensions to be invested in local businesses and startups. Now, as you know, folks, 1 in 3 new businesses goes belly up within 3 years. Only 1 of those 3 businesses will make it to a decade and go on to be a long-running business. So basically what Rachel Reeves has done, and she's put the meat on the bones of it now, you can look it up. She's opened up our pension schemes to casino gambling. That will allow our hedge fund managers to speculate in SMEs here in the UK. Now, it'll take a while for us to see how this one's going to go. So, check back with me in a decade and we'll see if we've got a fucking pensions crisis or everything's hunky-dory. This is a gamble. She's taken. She's hoping that that money will be invested wisely and that will cause economic growth. But this is the sort of policy that's going to take a decade to work its way through. So, I'll check back with you in a decade to see how stupid or how clever an idea this was. If it goes anything like casino banking, we know what happened there, folks. But it's no her money she's playing with. A bit like it's never the government's money they're playing with, it's ours. Now they've extended to playing with our savings. I don't remember giving anybody permission to fuck with my savings. So here's what you do, folks. You phone up your pension provider and tell them you don't want your money using this 25 billion fund. You don't want them gambling with your money. You want it put in safe investments. And tell them where to invest it. You can do that. You can do it. But as I say, this is the sort of policy that will take a decade to filter through. It'll take a decade for us to know if there's an impending pensions crisis looming in the private pension sector and the workplace pension sector as well. That's roughly how long it'll take for us to filter through. to see how long it takes for them to piss this 25 billion fund up a wall. I say, casino banking didn't go well. I don't know what makes them think casino gambling by pension funds will go any better. But I say this doesn't just affect people like myself who've got private pensions as well as a workplace pension. This affects everybody because everybody who works now has to have a workplace pension. And they're going to use the money in those pension funds to gamble on small businesses and startups here in the UK. In a market that's in decline. In a market which is shrinking. In a market where nobody's got any disposable income to spend into the market. Oh, impending disaster in a decade, folks. That's how I'm reading it. That's how I'm reading it. We've seen how the casino banking went when Gordon Brown deregulated the banking sector. Rachel Reeves is doing the same thing with the pension sector. They don't learn. No new ideas. Just rinse and repeat. Rinse and repeat. So we're doomed to failure here, folks. Doomed to failure. Okay. They don't seem to learn. They really don't seem to learn. Have a look. Too many lip spittles and certs in the SNP. Indy. I don't think so. I think actually when you're in the party, you can see that there's a healthy range of ideas and attitudes in the party. Looking outside looking in, you're making assumptions. If you're in the inside, then you already know. There's a variety of ideas and opinions within the party. In fact, traditionally the party's always been like that. That's why we've made good policy down through the years, because the left, the right and the centre's all in there. With one goal in mind, independence. Even if the eye isn't on the prize by that lot along that road at the moment. Right, also further afield, Starmer and Lamy, called out as liars, as it's revealed that the UK's trade envoy to Israel is in Israel trade envoying. What is it a trade envoy does? Promotes trade between the UK and Israel. Now, apparently, last week, trade talks between the UK and Israel had stalled. But the UK's ambassador, trade envoy, I've got his name here, Lord Alan Austin, stuck Starmer and Lamy in it by posting on X that he was in Haifa in northern Israel looking at some projects, and he tells us that the UK is open to business with Israel and that the UK should do business with Israel and Israel should continue to invest in the UK. Well, I thought, now what does Israel invest in the UK? And I thought, fucking thousands and thousands to buy politicians. That's what Israel invests in the UK. But turns out that I'm deluded, am I? Very good, Ernest. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, mate. Right. As it turns out, as David and I have already said, it was definitely clickbait. That day's speeches in the Commons. They're still flogging arms. They're still flying surveillance flights. And their trade envoy, Lord Alan Austin, is at present in Israel trade envoying, promoting trade between Israel and the UK. Specific trade talks may have stalled, but no, they'll no. The trade envoy is there to talk trade, and he'll be there to talk about trade, a trade deal. So, is anybody here surprised that kid starver, granny freezer, and war criminal and complicit in genocide Starmer has lied to the people in the Parliament, and that his a Foreign Secretary has lied to people in the Parliament? Is there anybody here surprised? When Starmer lied all his way into number 10, lied all his way to the top of the Labour Party, consistently lied to get into number 10. Anybody surprised now that he's got there? He's still a fucking liar. He's just a different type of liar for Boris Johnson. That's all. Just another liar, but this one's got his hair combed. The quality of people rising to the top in the political pile is the same as the quality of the stuff that rises to the top of the soup and needs skimmed off. The scum. It's a disgrace. There they are talking about being against the latest. And maybe. And what did they really? They put sanctions on 3 settlers in the West Bank. Israel's committing genocide, and the UK's idea of being tough was to put sanctions on 3 settlers in the West Bank. Fucking no real. And the slaughter goes on. I wonder how many 14,000 babies the UN gave 48 hours have survived. I wonder how much blood Starmer's willing to wade in before he's willing to pull Israel up short and actually start sanctioning Israel, as they all should be doing under their obligations as members of the United Nations. Bloody shocking. But I'm no surprised. David and I said at the time of these speeches in the Commons condemning Israel with the joint statements from Canada, France and the UK, did say it was clickbait. It was just a case of trying to appease a public that's getting more and more angry as we witness day in, day out on social media the slaughter of a full people. And what our politicians, they make us complicit. Even if it is politicians who claim to rule over us in a parliament in a land somewhere else. Now, let's move on, shall we? As if Rachel Reeves and her gambling with our savings isn't bad enough, the potential next Prime Minister, Froggy Fartage, has been laying out his economic policies, and it's got everyone scared. If this guy actually rose to power and could enact these policies, apparently it would make Liz Truss look like a top economist. Apparently this guy would crash the whole fucking system here. Which is interesting. Because he was talking about tax cuts, tax cuts, tax cuts. Yeah, he was talking about scrapping the two-child cap and reinstating winter fuel payments. And then you listen to his economic policy and say, how are you going to fund that? You go, how are you going to fund that? We'll get to how you're going to fund it right after John's super chat. Hi, John. I hope you're well, my friend. How's it going, all you indie supporters? See the day. Just have a good laugh and enjoy yourself. Independence all the way. P.S. Hope you, Davey, and me, Sarah, are keeping good and keep up a good, honest supporting. Alba Grubar. Aye, we're fine, John. And say, I hope you and the wife are all right and all, mate. Thanks very much for your kind contribution. Right. So, how will he fund putting back or taking away the two-child cap and reinstating the winter fuel payment? Well, he won't. Like Starmer, he's a liar. Farage wants small state with very little, if any, public services, a bit like America, including healthcare. He doesn't want healthcare in the hands of the state. He wants an insurance-based healthcare system. So, how will he deal with the two-child cap? He'll just deal with he'll just deal away with what's left of the safety net. He'll just deal away with what's left of the welfare state. As to those who are entitled to state pension, will he give them back 300 quid a year? Nah. Just a fucking liar. Just a liar. But as a idea of cut, get rid of, including the NHS, has economists laughing and has the banking sector shiting itself. Apparently his economic policies would crash everything and make Liz Truss the lettuce look like a prominent economist. And she crashed the fucking economy in 24 hours. Wow. Okay. So it's been an interesting one so far with some of the madness that's going on. And the next one up is going to be interesting and all. Now, it's been reported the UK to spend $1 billion on a cyber army, an army of hackers, and that's to combat hostile states who plan to attack UK infrastructure and businesses via the internet. It's also been reported that the military will move to AI and drones for battlefield strategies going forward. Now, why is all this talk about the military at the moment? Monday, the Defence Review report hits the table. Should be interesting. Now, why the move to mechanisation as much as possible? Well, young people don't want to take a job where they might be forced to kill each other. You know? They might be alright sitting there at a computer screen going boo, 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 boo. But they don't actually want to get the green shirt on, grab a gun and go and fight each other. So it'll be interesting wars of the future, won't it? Big tin men out in the middle of a field boxing it out. Fucking mental. I guess the only way to defeat an enemy going forward will be full-on destruction. Mutual destruction will be the name of the game in the future, actually. If that's where we're heading. Before we're sending out onto battlefields a lump of tin. But using AI and drones to measure up the field, get the lie of the land, and then strategise and put your men in, that will allow you to operate with less men. Which is what they're going to have to do, because they say the kids don't want to put on khakis, pick up a gun, and go and kill people. They just don't want to. which is fair enough. That's what we call evolution. It's about time we evolved beyond the point where we pick up big sticks and batter each other in the fucking heat to resolve our problems and our differences. So kudos to the kids, because they don't want to put on the green shit, pick up a gun, and go and batter somebody or the heat to their deed. Okay, but it should be interesting to see what's in the defence review, which hits the table on Monday, and we'll try and get some of it out to you guys on Monday afternoon, but probably Thursday we'll get a chance to read it. John, you're being awfully generous today. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, the illiterate gammons and marching milkmen up your way would vote for Frogface and reform. Well, there are a few, around. There are a few around. If we have a look at it, after all, Reform are actually sitting at the moment neck and neck with Labour here in Scotland. That's pretty depressing. Right. So as I say, the defence review will be out on Monday. And when it hits the table, I'll have a look at it and I'll have a look at areas that specifically affect Scotland. And we'll talk about it probably Thursday, because it'll take a couple of days to get a handle on it. So it will. John, you've been an absolute legend today. So you've all been legends today. And I am working on getting out the door. I've got 2 other organisations I'm waiting getting back to me. If they don't get back to me for Monday, I'll get another couple of organisations and see if they want the money. Okay. Right, so that's the spending review. Now today's also been interesting, because today Trump tariff wars came to a screeching halt as the US Court of International Trade, a federal court, rules his use of the Economics Emergency Act to bypass Congress to impose these what he called as Liberation Day tariffs was illegal. Now what they're saying is his use of emergency powers. Thanks, Alistair. You're always a star. Now what they're telling us is that Trump, the emergency powers that Trump used to bypass Congress and impose these tariffs, was illegal. And that means that all the tariffs that were imposed on Liberation Day will be lifted. So how would that affect the UK-US trade deal? Well, it doesn't, because it was never in place. It was a lot of bollocks. It was window dressing. There was supposed to be a date for it coming in, but it wasn't settled. But that means no relief for the UK steel industry, which were gearing up to be able to sell more to the Americans, because let's face it, they're struggling to get stuff. And it's bad news for the aluminium industry, and it's bad news for cars. Now, cars did have their tariffs under the agreement, which hadn't come into place, dropped to 10%, and there would be 0 tariffs on steel and on aluminium. That now goes back to 25% tariff on cars and 27.5% tariff on steels and aluminium, as it was prior to Liberation Day tariffs being imposed. There is another side to that as well, and that is that the 10% blanket tariff, which was put across all other UK goods exported to the United States, will now disappear, and it will go back to a sector per sector tariff system, which was in place prior to Trump's Liberation Day lunacy. So it's all going Pete Tong for the orange one. And Elon Musk has decided to leave the government as well. is he's no happy with Donald's big, beautiful bill. But now that the big, beautiful bill's passed, this ruling for the courts won't mean a fuck because it's a federal court. And in the big, beautiful bill, Trump gave himself the power to stop federal courts funding if they find against them and they need to go to the Supreme Court for a ruling. So, is democracy in America dead? Well, let's put it this way. It's on life support and there's somebody standing in the corner ready to pull the fucking plug. Who's that somebody? Donald Trump. And how's things going in Ukraine and Russian war? Russia's winning. Slowly, but surely. I know, that's what I'm saying. The tariffs will stay in place, Nathan, until they appeal. But because of a clause in the big beautiful bill, Trump will be able to oppose the federal court or be able to stop the funding for the federal courts to be able to deal with that appeal. To be able to put their case, basically. They say, is democracy dead in America? It's on life support. And Trump's standing, just waiting to see how much he can get away with his big beautiful bill, or should I say the people that are pulling his strings are waiting to see how much they can get away with a big beautiful bill. So, aye, democracy in America is almost dead. Democracy here has been dead for a very long time. And in Scotland, it's been dead really since they started overruling the outcome of our elections. Since they put aside the Seoul Convention and all. So, as for democracy in England, it's never existed. The first past the post system is no representative. It's a winner takes all game. And that means after that one person has taken all, everybody else has voted otherwise. Their votes don't count. That's no democratic at all. There it is. Right, managed to pad this one out a good bit there, folks. I'm sorry I haven't been able to keep up with your comments. They move hell of a fast. But you're right. Starmer will lick Trump's bahookie. So he will. Every chance he has, or every time he needs to. No choice. Thanks to Brexit, the UK is very vulnerable. The UK is floating about in a vast ocean, being circled by sharks and being devoured by vultures. Now, I'll call it a halt there, folks. To get my boots polished and get my bahookie out the door to work. I want to thank you all for joining us this afternoon. I want to thank you for your kind contributions to the to the food banks today via your super chats and any other means. And I'll be back tomorrow morning 10:30 for a newspaper headline review. It would appear that Charlie has managed to stay co-host for the whole time. As you can see, he's very engaging. He was up to speed on the topics. That's better than Mr. Mulligan. Now, I better not say that in case he's watching. So, I will say we're back tomorrow morning, 10:30, do it all again. Hopefully the other David and I will be here on Monday, to do the Monday afternoon show together. We'll keep an eye on developments over the weekend. I look forward to the defence review coming out on Monday. And we'll get the spending review coming out over the next few days of the week. So that should be interesting and all. But you guys look after yourself. And it's nice to see that there are, diverse opinions in the chat. Because that's the whole point of a topical affairs programme. Or a current affairs programme. is to get as many opinions in on the subject as you can. And the chat's a good place to do it. They usually look after each other. They say, I'll catch you all tomorrow morning at 10:30. Don't be late. You're on the naughty step. Keep your eyes on the prize. And on behalf of the other one, it is time for independence, independence, independence. But once would be enough for me. You know, in fact, we're only going to date once. Because if it ends up like million independence and back, and independence and back, and independence and back, I'll fucking deed by the time it's over.